morning, everybody. This is Hitendra Patel. I am the Managing Director for the Global Innovation Management Institute, as well as managing this think tank and driving this think tank. This think tank is a weekly webinar that we do, inviting people from all over the globe to speak about one of four topics. One, what are the trends of the future that will change the world, and therefore we as innovation people need to be prepared for it. Two, we have to talk about what are the innovation management techniques that are coming next, new techniques, Innovation 4.0, and talk about what those are and how they will allow us to go faster to be able to do bigger and bolder things on innovation. And number three, of course, we'll talk about what's going on in innovation-specific countries and geographies. And every now and then we intersect all that with tools that are being used with real examples across the globe. Today, we've got a great set of speakers. Ron Jonash, who has been doing innovation for all of his career and led innovation at Arthur D. Little, led innovation at the Monitor Group, and has been a driver of the Global Innovation Management Institute and the driver of the IXL Center. He is going to talk about the Innovation Olympics, and he has put together a group of speakers from the Institute of Aging as well as in hydrogen energy. So with that, I would like to head over the floor to Ron Jonash. And Ron, during this presentation, I may stop in, ask some questions if some things are not clear. But what we want to make sure is this is a fun discovery process for our audience, and let's make this thing engaging as fun as possible with questions and dialogues along the way. Thank you. Ron, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you, Hitendra. And I want to first give my appreciation to the people who participated in the recent Innovation Olympics. So this was a more complicated version of our regular Innovation Olympics, because we both had the first half where we focused on Innovation 4.0 tools and how they could be used to accelerate complex systems-wide innovations, such as the one that is associated with healthy longevity, as well as the one associated with green hydrogen. And that's why all these people participated. Rodrigo was the coach for the teams. I kind of managed the whole process. Nick represented the National Innovation Center for the Aging in the UK, and Paul was representing the Desert Energy Initiative, which is focused on green hydrogen. So all of us were involved in this, and I want to give recognition to everybody. I'm probably going to do the speaking until we get to the end, just to try to get through these slides in 30 minutes, because we do want to show you examples of what each of the teams came up with, both in terms of the recommendations to GIMI on the Innovation 4.0 tools and training, and also on healthy longevity and green hydrogen. So with that, why can't I? Okay. So first, I want briefly on the Innovation Olympics competitions. Many of you are aware of these, and then I'm going to talk about the results for GIMI in this late spring one, as well as the results for NICA and DII. So we've been tracking many of the dramatic and disruptive changes of the world, as well as all the range of innovation responses. So we've written books, booklets that can be used by you and others in training and kind of discussions. Each one of these has a lot of case studies, like 30 or 40 case examples of what companies have done with innovation in each of these areas. So Greenovate, Healthivate, Connectivate, and Robovate are all publications of IXL and GIMI. In particular, the four mega trends that gave rise to this particular Innovation Olympics in the spring was everything needs to be green, emission-free, carbon neutral, all those things. And so that was strongly associated with the green hydrogen initiative, obviously, but also associated with the healthy longevity initiative. Everything is connected. That's surely true of the whole value chain for hydrogen and sustainable energy. It's also true for all of the things that are going to enable the aging population to live healthy, be connected with others, and with all the things they need. Increasingly global, we talked about when Nick gave his presentation a couple weeks ago on healthy longevity, about how his vision is to have these initiatives, these innovation accelerators for healthy longevity taking place around the world. And the same thing is actually true for DII. While it started with looking at desert produced sustainable green energy, it's also intended to solve the energy issues of the world, which have become kind of much more apparent now, obviously, with the Ukraine and everything else. And then lastly, demographics are changing. And so we have generations of people who are much more digitally capable now. We have a larger and larger percentage of an aging population, depend on where you draw the line. So, and that aging population has a huge proportion of the wealth of nations, both here and elsewhere in the world. And so there's a lot of investment that they're willing to make in their own tribe, in their own in their own demographics, and in how they connect to others. So all of these kind of converge to make us excited, both about doing something with Innovation 4.0, which enables us to simulate and visualize and gamify different solutions, but also specifically with healthy longevity and green hydrogen. So the way the Innovation Olympics works, just because I go backwards. So we typically have 5 or 6 teams. We had 6 teams in this case. They're diverse in terms of geographic areas, functional skills. We really embrace diversity within the teams as well as among the teams. We have a proven methodology that we've been using in these competitions for 15 years now, pressure tested at ADL, at Monitor, and in various associations we're part of. And it's accelerated. It takes place over 8 to 10 weeks. It's disciplined, structured results, et cetera. So it's a very different kind of program than anything else that's offered out there, and truly enables organizations to get on top of very complex issues and come up with practical solutions. So what it does is it provides a fresh perspective. You get perspective from very skilled and educated teams from around the world who are excited about finding solutions to these challenges. So they get new perspective. The sponsors get new insight on different kinds of solutions, and you're able to create a council to collaborate and develop solutions together. So particularly in these two, there's been such an emphasis on building kind of global collaboration and coordination among all the parties to make it happen. Having kind of a global council or coordinating group, whether it's for regionally distributed accelerators or whatever, is a really important benefit. So we've done this for over 100 different, or actually over 200 different organizations, over 100 different business and professional schools worldwide. So we've kind of learned by doing ourselves, and all these places where we source our teams, as well as these clients who have sponsored this before, offer excellent testimonials to the work that's been done. So with that, let me summarize some of the results for GIMI. So this was a different, as many of you know, these competitions involve an initial stage of collaboration and then competition. So we try to use a team to train the teams to do both. So they collaborated a lot on the first piece of this, which was looking at results for GIMI. What should GIMI do in terms of training or certification or writing or research to really advance the understanding and utilization of simulation, visualization, gamification, virtualization, all those things that in advanced companies and organizations starting, I mean, it's gone back a long time, but the energy companies have done it for years and years, clearly, as they've tried to simulate different, whether it's business models and pricing, or whether it's exploration or whatever. And, jet flight simulators have been around probably for 30 years. So there's a lot of simulators, a lot of virtualization, but now as digital transformation is impacting all this, those things are kind of much more being picked up by leading companies to accelerate their results and offer them, either their cities or their own companies, a competitive advantage. So that's what we did with the GIMI Institute, the National Institute for Center for Aging in the UK, and DII. We looked at the Innovation 4.0 tools that allow this rapid visualization. We went through this process to come up with recommendations for GIMI in this case, but also then the second part of this Innovation Olympics, so how do we apply these to accelerate solutions for healthy longevity and for green hydrogen. So in the past, we've had lots of interesting cases. And in this case, just looking at this, we found over 125 different cases where people are using various aspects of Innovation 4.0 very successfully, whether it was visualization, simulation, gamification. And interestingly enough, of course, the Innovation Olympics incorporates all of those: gamification, simulation, quick simulation of outcomes and experiences, and ways to visualize this. So we've tried to embrace as much of this as we can in our own work, recognizing that, there were still hurdles to overcome in terms of digital transformation, et cetera.
Ron, if I
Yes.
may just ask some questions while you are doing this. If you can go back to the previous slide.
Yep.
Just for the audience, what you're saying is you have an ability to use a very powerful methodology to be able to see what's going to happen next, and on there identify opportunities. And that methodology is very robust, that you then use multiple teams from all over the world to be able to source the best intelligence or insights. And therefore it's different than what most people normally do. The fact that you're using 5 teams to get 5 sets of intelligence and insights, and they do collaborate and cooperate, and there's one fixed methodology that they're using. Well, what's different between if McKinsey were to do this, or if somebody like BCG would do this, or a company would do this? Why is this different and more insightful?
No, I think in all 3 of the constituencies, companies, if they try to do it internally, they do. It's hard to do competitions internally. So they'll usually have one team, and often from one function, trying to do this. And they're pretty much tied to their current business, their current assets, their current marketing, et cetera. So it's hard for them to go beyond the core. It's hard for them to look at things that what if and what's next. For universities, it's hard because they have one department or one program. It's one group of students. It's some of them do competition sort of, but they're all within that one university. The advantage of this program is that it sources things from different universities. Therefore, you get really healthy competition between teams, and therefore between the universities that they represent. And you get much more diverse solutions because they are all taking kind of a fresh look at this, and a fresh look from the outside in, which is the other advantage over kind of companies doing it. So this sourcing is truly multi-sourcing of new solutions, new ideas, and it's very fast, and it gets to practical solutions because, as we're going to talk about in a few minutes, the initial Innovation Olympics usually lead to what we call pursuit teams. And so pursuit teams can then compete to come up and make it real. So in this case, most of the recommendations were for some kind of a accelerator whether it was for healthy longevity, for green hydrogen. And so how do you make that real when you're trying to do something globally with this many different kinds of constituencies? And these teams can do that.
That's great. Ron, thanks for the clarification. And then you guys chose three very difficult challenges. What were the future of innovation tools? And then you chose what will happen in a world where there's living longer or longevity and a world that's changing to hydrogen. So looking forward to the next part of this presentation. Thank you, Ron.
So first on GIMI, the question was, what are those emerging practices and which are most cost effective? So that the teams came up with their kind of own move to a different or refined model of how these digitized tools can help people accelerate their understanding, accelerate the opportunity, accelerate the execution, learn faster, adapt faster, test faster. So all of this is this kind of accelerating this circle of innovation. The digital transformation has certainly enabled a lot of that. That's just kind of coming rapidly on board now in terms of all these tools where you can do much more personalization, sharing, collaboration, et cetera, using a lot of the technological enablers that let you go beyond kind of conventional models. And so the three pieces of this that the teams looked at quite a bit were innovation simulators. So how do you accelerate simulation of potential solutions? Visualization and virtualization, where you can actually experience and visualize what it's going to look like and feel like, what the competitive dynamics is going to be, et cetera. And then gamifying, where you can actually play innovation Olympics games like in the Olympics, but you can play it as different parties are trying to position themselves to lead whatever, it's what if and what's next. So those were the three major things they looked at. I'm not going to go through them in detail, but the innovation simulator, obviously there are all kinds of levels of maturity about what people are doing with simulators. I mean, my request of everybody is, if you haven't gone through a jet flight simulator, it's a good thing to do. It's fun, and it gives you a sense of what you could do with simulation if you don't have examples of that. The visualization, again, rapid translation of behavioral and competitive dynamics, not just product solutions. So a lot of benefits to advanced visualization techniques. And then gamification. So gamification was thought to be just games for fun, which it is. It makes innovation for everybody more fun. They get engaged with different people from their organization or from their partners. And so gamifying it, again, allows you to simulate and to experience what it would be like to be able to play and win in this game. So some examples of the ideas or the opportunities that people saw. These are just the slides of a couple of teams. This happens to be the London Business School team that was looking at all the different ways that people are using these kinds of tools. This is the University of Calgary teams kind of looking at simulation and virtualization of solutions and how, in this case, focused on GIMI and what they might be able to do in terms of training and audits, et cetera, for this. And then this was Duke, human-centered e-learning, micro-learning, gamified learning, digital twins. Digital twins and metaverse came up in a lot of the solutions. So I'm just trying to summarize kind of all the things that came up. And then as a result of that, in these first 4 weeks, the teams not only identified best practices and benchmarks, but helped us come up with a way to audit where different organizations are in terms with awareness, support, experience, in-house accelerators, et cetera, and kind of how they can move from, and how the benefits of moving from left to right and how it's going to change the user experience results. So their recommendations were all heavily around both training, so we can get more people aware and trained in how to use these tools, and auditing so that companies and organizations kind of know where they were and what they would need to do to get it much more effective in their organizations. So that was kind of the results for GIMI. That was all kind of a lead into the more focused work of, all right, if there are all these benefits of simulation, virtualization, et cetera, how do we use those to accelerate exciting solutions for healthy longevity and for green hydrogen? The organization is called Desert Energy, but it's really focused on green hydrogen. So in the case of NICA, so Nick Palmarini is head of the center there in Newcastle, and they have a bunch of partners, as does DII. And so they're already doing lots of things around what they call longevicities, healthy longevity in cities, moving from today where you're just trying to make them friendlier for the aging, make them places where the population can rapidly transition and stay productive and connected members of society in cities, as opposed to being a burden on society, as opposed to being lonely and disconnected. What are the things that can keep people both mentally and physically engaged and excited about their life, starting in their 50s, but clearly all the way into their 80s and 90s and beyond? So that was kind of the essence here of looking at different kinds of solutions and how they could be accelerated, not only in pilot cities like Newcastle, which is one city where we're talking about doing this kind of accelerator, but in other cities around the world, which is again our appeal to you on this meeting today, and to friends and others who you know who might be interested in participating. So that's kind of the challenge around healthy longevity, around just as that's a complex issue involving lots of stakeholders. Of course, the objectives of DII for kind of emission-free, carbon-neutral, sustainable solutions involves people up and down the value chain, essentially trying to make use of unproductive areas of desert or ocean that are wide open, where you can produce energy from wind or solar, and then potentially convert it to green hydrogen and ship it all over the world to be as a storage mechanism for energy, but also that then be used to produce electricity and to be used in other applications around the world. So those were the two challenges. And so three of the teams worked on the longevity challenge, and three of them worked on the green hydrogen challenge. In terms of, and these are the kinds of partners that DII has. So each organization already has lots of partners. And so we're trying to engage those partners and others in pilot innovation accelerators, I guess you'd call them, in different parts of the world, starting probably with potentially a DII accelerator in the Middle East, and clearly one of the first places for the longevity accelerator is in the UK. But there are both of them have the ambition of becoming part of a global network of these innovation centers, and that's what we'd like to put forward to the innovation think tank, is how do we create that global network. So this, in terms of the solutions from the teams for longevity, there were again three teams who focused on this. This is just examples. I'm going to share from a couple of the teams. This was the team from AIM in the Philippines that was looking for ways to connect the elderly population or aging population with everything they need, way beyond physical health and transportation. And so they were looking at a kind of digital solution that became a common solution that everybody could use. It would be customized, obviously, in terms of the networks you can access and how to access them in different parts of the world. but they did a lot of work on kind of testing this and demonstrating how it could really change the lives of both elderly people, but also just people who are starting to age. They're in their 50s and 60s. So the elements of the business concepts were all focused on really making sure they could maximize the human experience of it, that they use digital twins to be able to test it rapidly, as well as additional kind of follow on to the Innovation Olympics, looking at prevention, not just cures and treatment. And so this was the kind of quick summary of all the work that the AIM team did. The University of Calgary team proposed also kind of a strong integrated platform involving some of their existing, NICA's existing partners around voice, et cetera, in order to fast track and accelerate kind of innovation and to rapidly test things and to build a strong path forward with eventually what they talked about in terms of what specific kinds of accelerators and different business models that could work best in terms of people from the public sector, startups, academia, and government, all working in this case with NICA, but other organizations around the world as well. And so this was definitely proposed as something more than typical health innovation collectives. It was focusing on the whole life, mental, physical, et cetera, of the aging population. In terms of desert energy, the solutions, there were 3 teams again who worked on this. One of them in this case was IIT from India, kind of building again a DII kind of innovation accelerator that worked kind of across the whole circle and involved a couple of the key things they saw around blockchain and community, as well as kind of the whole innovation arena. And so they went into detail, as did the other teams I mentioned, Calgary and AIM, in terms of the partners and the associations that would make the most sense to make this work. They then looked at the different capabilities that would create the strong kind of platform to be able to excite all the members, because as in normal, there's a lot of people who are resisting change, a lot of people who are okay with change, and a few people who are driving change. And so you've got to create more excitement and more awareness of how this could work for you wherever you are in the value chain. So this was very much kind of part of what IIT was doing. IIM was focused on kind of digital twins as an example of how you could move forward. And all the teams talked a little bit about digital twins in terms of just providing the environment in which you could rapidly test solutions. The other thing that was big, this was from IIM, was metaverse, how to use the beginning of these applications of the metaverse to as a context setting environment in innovation accelerators. So all of the teams really focused in the end on how do you get everybody together virtually or directly into innovation acceleration networks and centers where you could rapidly exchange information, test things, propose things, and get people on board more quickly than is the typical way of of R&D. So with that, I'd like to, I think we're at about 30 minutes now. I'd like to open it up to questions, and then I do want to talk about kind of next steps, but let me open up for questions first.
Ron, do you mind stop presenting so we can put some heads on as they ask questions? Thank you. Okay. As people put their hands up for questions, put your hand up, please, and we'll invite you into the conversation. It'd be good to just get comments also from um, Paul and Nick, as well as with Rodrigo. What if this thing is powerful or engaging or exciting, or what is the value proposition? This sounds very exciting, but I would like to know from the customer perspective or the partner perspective or the student's perspective, the team's perspective, what are the value propositions that you guys all experienced? And so I'll throw that at you, Ron, but I'd like to also hear from Paul and Nick and others.
Well, I guess I'd like to, let me throw it to Rodrigo first. Rodrigo was day-to-day coaching all these teams. So in terms of the teams and why they got excited, I'd like Rodrigo to weigh in, and then have Paul and Nick weigh in a little bit about kind of both the recently completed work, which in terms of a focus on their organizations was only for about 4 weeks, but more how do we move forward from this and really build out these kind of innovation acceleration networks, labs, whatever, that could really help both of those organizations advance their initiatives. So Rodrigo?
Yeah, thank you, Ron. So hello guys, for those who don't know me yet. So my name is Rodrigo Castro. I'm based here in Dubai. I was the mentor of the 6 teams participating in this Innovation Olympics. Ron, I think answering your question, I think that the most exciting part of the Innovation Olympics was really the research phase. Like we could definitely find many interesting examples of companies, of different industries, of different sectors that are using those Innovation 4.0 tools in order to bring value to their companies. Like we found examples in mining, in energy, in food and beverage industry, in consumer goods industry. Like it's a huge market. Everybody is now thinking about digital twins, about blockchain, about metaverse, about like simulated environments. I think this was the most interesting and exciting part, was to really see how many examples and how companies are really using those Innovation 4.0 tools, simulation, gamification concepts as well. And the teams could do this research. As you have presented in one of your slides, they have found more than 125 interesting cases. And from there, they could narrow down those most interesting applications and the ones with the highest potential to be applied to GIMI, to DAI, Desert Energy, and also to Nika. So I think the most rewarding was the research phase. So the research phase was really something that I would like to highlight, because it was really interesting to see how many companies from different industries and sectors are really applying those tools in their innovation strategies to really bring value to their companies. So I would highlight this point.
And I would just add, before I turn it over to Nick and Paul, is that the teams were a little bit, in honesty here, they were frustrated they didn't have more time to work on the challenges posed by Nika and DII. Just because of logistics, they ended up only able to spend 3 weeks focused on DII and Nika. That's a very short period of time. They did amazing work if you think of what 3 teams for each of them can do just in 3 weeks, to come up with ideas and suggestions about how things could be dramatically accelerated and how new solutions could be looked at in different ways. So they were frustrated, but I think they were also, looking back on it, they were really excited about how much they could do in just 3 weeks. Most people would think, what can I do in 3 months or 3 years? And
Ron,
so
is there some students who are here who were part of this project?
Yes, we have Piyush here from Duke team, who was the winning team for DAI Desert Energy, and we have also Jason that is from AIM team, who was the winner for the Nika track. So Piyush, if you would like to share some thoughts, how was the Innovation Olympics program for you? How was the feeling of the team?
Thank you, Rodrigo. Thanks everyone for this session. It's an amazing opportunity to come and speak on my learnings from the Olympics. So I feel it's one of the best things that I've done this year, because all of us speak about innovation, but rarely do we put it into implementation. It's a buzzword, but I feel what GIMI is doing right now, it's shaping the entire field of innovation. Uh, it was enlightening to say the least to learn the process of innovation management through a fixed framework, a tested framework. That is something which I would definitely use beyond this competition. In fact, I've already started using it in some of my school projects, and the entire team was excited to be a part of this because uh, it compelled us to think beyond what we see in our everyday lives. It actually brought our creative juices outside. And yeah, it's good to be part of the winning team, but even better was to collaborate with individuals and teams across the world and then learn what their perspective towards innovation is.
That's great, Piyush. So there was a student component where all this work is being done by students, but these are not students. These are MBAs. These are people with 5 or 7 years of experience, and the teams bringing multifunctional, multi-organizational knowledge, and they're working together to try and address issues for Paul in hydrogen, or issues for aging, or issues for the tools of the future. Paul, what was your experience from the side of receiving this information? How much was it new? How much was it a wow? What surprises did you have, and how were you able to use this information as a next step?
Yeah, good question. I think that I was very surprised in positive sense about the confrontation with these groups and with you, with GIMI as such. But I also, what we have seen a lot in the past, and we saw the same in this process with GIMI, is a general confusion about what we are doing or what the objectives are. I think we did not spend a lot of time on the objectives. But what if we say it's like sexy to talk about green hydrogen or the need of being green or longevity? Everyone would agree that it's important, it's sexy, we have to do something. And then you come with all the tools and you want to work on it. So the focus for you, the objective is to go into innovation and to use your tools. That's very legitimate. But I would plead to spend a little bit more time on the objectives. What do we want to reach? How important is it? Is it really the right thing to do? Is it why are we doing this? And so on and so forth. If we have a good understanding and we agree on what are we trying to reach, then on innovation is important to do it in the right way. So it's doing the right thing in the right way. Not doing the wrong thing in the right way, or
Right.
Things like that. So if we talk, I admire you. All these groups were they all had eye openers for me, like the metaverse and the visualization and simulation and digitization and so on. Also, the new approaches is very interesting, and we should all try to use this to our best extent. But if I zoom in on green energy, then the question is why? What's the purpose of green energy? Are we aware of it? We really should be all understand thoroughly what it means and all be critical. Like it is about green hydrogen, by the way, not even only green energy. It's green hydrogen. And I mean Ron showed it in this sheet, which is a little bit complex sheet of the value chain, but it says something about the objectives of lowest cost, energy security, no emissions, and all kinds of other objectives related to it, like jobs and peace and stability in the world and that kind of thing. So I think my idea is to spend a little bit more time on these kind of objectives for the purpose of GIMI, so that it fits well. Like, are we sure that this is really an innovation that is really needed in that sense? And needed is always a container term, but in what sense is it needed? And what are the advantages? The positive thing of this subject, by the way, like the other subject of longevity, I'm quite sure that we can show very clear in examples and also in some visualization what the advantages are. Like we could also make a short comparison of doing nothing and just move on as before on Earth and fire all the coal mines and so on and so forth, or to build only nuclear plants, and then as a third one to focus on natural energy, and then to show like what are pros and cons and why it is also in an economic sense the best way to do, and why it is so important to do it as fast as possible, because the big advantages are really being captured if we do this fast. And then we can give the innovation a role. Then it's really needed to do this with the best modern innovation tools and with the brightest minds. And the brightest minds, you can tap all the institutes, the university, your show, but the people that are partly here, what they can do, they can move this forward. So then we can show to the world that what we are doing is really a step ahead and brings much more benefits and maybe not only any disadvantage. I could not imagine any disadvantage of doing this, but it is very important to actively talk about it. Just to even to try to find disadvantages of what we are doing. That would also be a nice one.
Yeah. So Paul, this is fascinating, and for the audience, they're trying to get their arms around what happened here. And I'm going to keep on summarizing what happened. Ron put an experiment together, which was basically saying, can we use student teams to help energy, green energy, hydrogen, green hydrogen, or aging and tools, and says, can we bring this talent pool from across the globe and then pull together topics which are the most important trends on the planet, and from those things come out with some very meaningful objectives and projects, and perhaps now bring partners, collaboration partners, I believe, from the world who would like to join this thing for the next phase of this conversation. So I'm gonna ask Ron to maybe bring this back together. I mean, this is an incredibly large coordination game, Ron, that you're organizing. And in that coordination, most people would run away from it. You coordinated all the student teams. You coordinated all the stakeholders and partners. And you coordinated a problem that is a global problem for all companies of the planet. Aging, if you are a company, you better have a solution for aging. If you are a company, you use energy, you better have a solution for energy. So now, maybe Ron, just to set the stage up, and for Paul and Rodrigo and Piyush even, you guys got us organized. You guys are telling us what the problems are, what the opportunities are, and all that. What's next?
Well, at least in the view of the teams and in our view, I think what's next is to spend the more time, not years, but weeks and months as opposed to days, getting a better understanding, as Paul just said, of what the real objectives are, both the objectives of the organizations involved. So what are the objectives of DII and NICA, but also what are the objectives in terms of coming up with high impact solutions for the issues surrounding green energy and surrounding a rapidly aging population. So how do we, what are the objectives there? And do both. What's the objective of the organization? Because we felt very strongly that both based on what the organization said and what the teams found, these solution sets and these issues and objectives truly are global. Each organization may have a regional focus. So DII is focused on the Middle East and NICA is focused on England, but they all want to help solve this global problem. And so I think the teams all said, okay, what we really need to do is have a more kind of understanding and input from different areas as to how this could play out best in Manila, in the Philippines, or in Indonesia, or in South America. So as we've looked at this, we said, all right, can we find partners and potential sponsors to kind of look at this from the perspective of what's the need in different regions, what are the institutions in those regions that could work with NICA and with DII to start driving global solutions, because many of the players and the partners are global. DII and NICA as institutions may have more of a regional focus, and that's appropriate for them, but the players are global. So we're looking for ways to develop solutions that can be tailored to different regions, but there's going to be a lot of similarity in the solutions and a lot of shared learning. So how do we start to build a network to share the learning of how, we have a couple clients that we have in South America are very interested in already doing things in green hydrogen, but they could learn a lot from what DII has already done. And the same is true in aging with different people. So we're trying to kind of establish, initially, I would call it just a learning network or an exploratory network of different folks around the world who believe these are key issues that need to be addressed. And the best way, at least that the teams found, of practically integrating that was more than a learning network. Let's actually put in place innovation accelerators around these two subjects in different parts of the world, so that there's actual things going on, things to share. It's not just blah, 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 blah. It's actual kind of projects and initiatives to say, how do we move green hydrogen from here to here in existing infrastructure, or how do we really provide kind of access to elderly for purposeful things that they can do, whether it's gardening or whatever.
Okay.
So I think that putting together the network and having sponsors is really the most important, real next step.
So let's be very practical. Well, so we can really use the GIMI network, this very moment of all the people are listening, to say what we can do something specific. You have put together enough thought leadership around the topic about energy and green energy. You have created 5 to 10 concepts of what could be next and what else you could do globally. Those are all sitting there as a think tank with great ideas, and it is all centered around with the support of Paul's organization, Desert Energy, as a starting point, as an anchor company to get this thing going. Who are the other 10 types of companies that you would like around this anchor companies to say, let's build an accelerator to take these ideas and concepts forward? Who would be those 10 anchor companies? Paul, Rodrigo, Piyush, you were in there, Ron. Give me two companies. I hope they're listening, and I hope they'll say, I want to be part of this program. So who wants to start? Give me 2 names. And so let's use this platform to yell out a call to action. Join us in building a global accelerator around green energy. Paul, give me 2 or 3 names. Ron, 2 or 3 names.
There are many companies now. There are many institutions and activities on global hydrogen, for instance. There is an association, hydrogen. There are many, by the way. There's a whole set. I'm not so sure if we have to go from the global to or directly jump into the global. It makes the thing maybe a little bit too large. And it also causes that my added value to it would be less if it goes global. Of course, we can make it global. It is a global topic for sure. Like emissions and climate are global topics for sure. But we also have to get the connection to people that have a very clear objective, to, like doing business, for instance. Hydrogen is not yet a global subject, by the way. It will take a long time. The hydrogen, in practical terms, there is almost no hydrogen business around in the world. It's very, very small. So people are talking a big thing about hydrogen, but it will take a long time, at least years, until this will be a substantial global business, still a local business. Like in Europe, in some countries in Europe, and maybe United States, Japan, China, and it is all at a very decent and modest scale. So if you make it too big, this bird, then it cannot fly. Yeah, I mean, then you have a sitting big bird.
So start local. Give me 2 names. Start local, but let's not way
I mean,
that's
local,
take action.
all the names in our network, you can take almost all the names. We
think that's-
are really, in the last few years, we are like becoming a sort of hydrogen association. Although our objectives are broader in the value chain. But like Mazen and Masdar and Neom, but also Siemens and
But Paul, I'm gonna stop you for a second. My job as the global innovation management think tank person is to drive action, insights into action, right? You guys have the insights. You guys put this together. I would love to see you guys start with what Ron's proposing is a global accelerator or accelerator which is local. It doesn't matter, local accelerator or global accelerator. Why can't we get 3 people in there? So you think about the 3. I'm going to jump to Ron. I'm just trying to get action over here versus us getting stuck in maybe we can't do this. I want to move into creating an urgency. Ron, give me 3 companies.
So just to build on what Paul said, I think it does. You want to get the hub built first. So it's hub and spoke, and so the hub is the Middle East, whether it's Dubai or someplace else. There are both governments there and a lot of businesses there, and they're all on DII because of it's focused on the desert and the Middle East value chain. So you start there. And as Paul said, you start with the partners that Paul has already gotten in his organization to sponsor this initial launch of a green hydrogen.
So you already have the network.
Well, but we want, I think, go ahead.
it is
So
not
I think
only
it's
the
sponsor
Middle
the
East.
accelerator.
Actually, our network is global, by the way. Our focus is North Africa, Middle East, and not only hydrogen, but also the whole energy value chain. I would say, of course, we can go very relatively fast into the global approach, but let's make the first step to make learning to walk is like learning the first steps. Yeah, so we have to. What we could do is like we say, well, where would we like to be in 5 years or in 3 years? Yeah, 3 years, and that is something global, something like Tender is thinking about. And then in this year, maybe next year, we start as an example with the MENA region. MENA is directly connected to Europe. These are neighbors, by the way. They discovered that they are neighbors. And so then we give some examples, and then something like in the middle of next year, we make it global, something like that. And we can, of course, if I have something and you have already a little bit of material, we have to do a little bit of homework on the objectives. Objectives in the sense of what business is it, a business objectives, why this is so interesting. And then the other objectives, the innovation, why is it so important that we do this from an innovation perspective, or with an innovation perspective? These 2 elements, that connects both of us. And then I can go to my network and say, well, hey, I have a connection to a fantastic innovation network with the best people worldwide, and they can help to give a push to hydrogen in MENA, for instance, to start. And then it makes it very interesting. And once this group is showing what it can do, then we can amplify it. Because this is for sure, if you do the right thing for MENA, then you do the right thing for the world at the end of the day. And
So Ron, you're talking about doing an accelerator pursuit realization of these ideas this year, or are you waiting to do this in 2 or 3 years?
No, I'm saying this year, we'd like to get it actually done and launched in MENA and in the UK as hubs, and use that as a kind of, I don't want to call it forcing function, but be successful in those 2 hub areas, and therefore get other areas who are at least starting to explore it now, or who are looking at the results that are coming out of the UK and MENA, and they get excited about doing their own accelerator. So those are next year. But this year was just get the 2 started now and get explorations underway in other parts of the world where it's a very interesting subject, and where people in those parts of the world, like our clients in Latin America, etc., they can join for a much smaller amount of resources or whatever. The MENA one, just to have a window and an eye on what's going on there and what they could do to sponsor something in their own region of LATAM, for example. So I think getting more people involved, in addition to the local sponsors in the UK and MENA, so that we have a platform to build on next year, so that the two hubs, maybe they focus on fairly narrow issues like, or opportunities like green hydrogen this year, but then they say, all right, beyond green hydrogen, what are the other things we as a sustainable energy or green energy group should be looking at? But you start with something that's, the exciting thing about green hydrogen is it's so timely, and everybody's, I mean, the news is full of it and people don't understand it. I probably don't understand it, but it has huge potential implications, particularly given the Russian and Ukraine situation and the German. I mean, everybody's looking for a way to do this. And when I see it popping up in lots of discussions and strategies in Latin America and Asia, I know that it's at a tipping point. And so we want to deal with that particular hot issue right now and say, what are the things that an accelerator in MENA could do to really clarify the benefits of green hydrogen and how green hydrogen can play and what needs to be done, what the key success factors are, et cetera. And to Paul's comment, you know, that has, we, as you know, Paul, are very focused on what we call business innovation, the creation and capture of new value in new ways. And so that's the focus of these accelerators. It's not technology. Technology is less the issue than getting everybody aligned in terms of them seeing a way to benefit and profit from this new business opportunity. So we want to
so maybe just to summarize what I understand, and maybe we are coming close to the end of our session. So Ron, I know you want to talk about next steps in here also specifically. You use the Innovation Olympics as a way to focus and generate a whole body of knowledge around green energy or around aging or around innovation. Though that knowledge could become a hub or a center in Dubai or in the MENA region for green hydrogen, or it could be a center for aging, which already exists in the UK. But GIMI is going to partner with the energy hub. GIMI is going to partner with the hub for aging. GIMI is already a center of excellence around innovation. And so wherever the centers exist, you want more body of knowledge to be developed, and therefore a network around each one of them. And then in here, as you generate these ideas, what Piyush and his team were able to do, whatever those ideas are, some of them could be accelerated. And so you want to create these accelerators sitting next to these hubs. And that's the grand vision as we go from energy into maybe in the future, there might be a center of excellence for nanotechnology or a center of excellence for other things. We put other networks of the most important trends and basically create knowledge and accelerators, all powered by these diverse teams of students from around the world, from the business schools and engineering schools. Is that kind of like the vision that you're talking about? Yeah.
Yes, and I think that there, in each case, in order to make that happen, what we want to ask of the GIMI think tank is we need kind of prime sponsors, organizational sponsors. So in the case of the UK and MENA, you know, there's the DII and NICA are obvious potential prime sponsors. NICA's already pledged significant pledge to get it kickstarted in the UK. Hopefully we can find one of either Paul or one of his partners to be the lead sponsor in the MENA region, or maybe it's Dubai, or maybe it's GCIO or something else who is the prime sponsor. And then other people kind of tag along initially because they're not sure this is really going to work. So you have two prime sponsors that have put up somewhere between 25 and 50K, and then minor sponsors or participating sponsors who put up 10 or 15, and then you can really get something started in those two areas, and those kind of those minor sponsors become potential major sponsors of something in other regions of the world. But for now, they are what creates the critical mass of sponsorship and interest in these subjects in MENA and the UK. But we do need, and GIMI is certainly willing to put time and effort into helping make this happen with those partners and with NICA and DII. And so we have the beginnings, and we need to flesh that out as quickly as possible so that people see this as real, not just a pipe dream.
Excellent. So maybe just to support over here, when I think about hydrogen, we've got companies in South America who are distributing hydrogen and worrying about whether it's green, it's sourced in a way, in the right way, or it's being stored in the right way, and there's losses and all that kind of stuff. And they're interested in where hydrogen is going. So we can see those sort of players saying we're interested in at least knowing what's going on. And similarly, if you're in Brazil, you got the same companies, US, you got the same companies. So talk to your networks across the globe to see if they're interested in becoming part of a consortium, and call it a consortium, but not a consortium for knowledge, but a consortium for results, consortium with outcomes. And that's what the accelerator is all about. And so maybe that's another way to brand it. Historically, consortiums were companies who didn't compete with each other, would work together to pull the future to the present quicker, because no one person could do it alone. And these consortiums learn to play well together and do more. And I think what Ron's proposing and Rodrigo's proposing over here is, it's not just about talking though, it's about teams who are actually doing something and getting results. It's wonderful.
Yes, well summarized.
Okay, I'll give you guys each a last minute, and then we can go wrap this. This amazing thing that you guys are doing, and wrap this up. So Piyush, you can have a word in here as a student team member. What would make you most happy as an outcome of your work? And then everybody else, just give us a minute of what you're thinking about and what you would want to do. So Piyush, go ahead first.
Yeah, I would see a suggested plan in action, even if it's at a small scale. But I believe the need of the hour is to start acting on it. Otherwise, it will remain an idea.
So there's urgency. Let's get going, and that's clearly. And Piyush, if this thing moves, you would want to be involved.
I would love to. I would love to see my figment of imagination come to life. Yeah.
Excellent, excellent. Rodrigo?
In fact, I would like to, if you allow me, Hitendra, I would like to bring Tina to the discussion here. She was part of the AIM team. Tina, are you there? Are you listening to us? Hello, Tina. Tell us a little bit. Tina was a member of the AIM team who was the winner for the NICA track. Go ahead, Tina.
Okay, good morning and good evening to everyone. I think just like my Piyush earlier, we would love to be part of the team, who's going to put this in reality. Having the opportunity to actually come up with a idea for a real life idea, for a real company, not just like a case study in our MBA school, is actually a huge opportunity for us to think of an idea that will hopefully provide an impact to the society. So yes, very, very much privileged to be part of this.
Excellent, Christina. We are now talking about moving your ideas into, there were insights in there, and insights drive actions. And I think we are beginning to feel some of the insights, and some people are beginning to feel compelled. You can't stop. Can't stop talking about it into actions. Rodrigo, what are next steps that you specifically are thinking to help this thing move forward?
Yeah, I definitely support Ron in everything that he has explained. I have described here in the chat some companies that are really looking for developing and investing in opportunities like this. So basically, I think that one of the biggest players now in this green energy is NEOM. NEOM is a $500 billion investment from Saudi Arabia. They are creating a futuristic smart city of the future. It's called The Line. You guys will be impressed by the by the video of this project. And there is a company called Enova, which is a partner from NEO that is leading all of this clean water and green energy stream of this project. So I'm sure they will be interested in what Ron is proposing as the second step of this Innovation Olympics.
So Rodrigo, we expect you to go talk to them and get the meetings this week, and we start moving forward. Again, there's talk and there's action. Innovation is about ideas, but ideas that get implemented.
And action.
Yes,
Definitely.
it's time to move and getting results. Paul, thoughts, comments as next steps, and then Ron, I'll allow you to wrap it up.
Today's Wednesday's taken 10 years. On Friday, Bradley Andrews, who's the president of Worley Europe and Asia, he's the lead edge in the world in terms of actually building it's blue hydrogen and some green hydrogen. He's won 4 of the last $5 billion contracts, and he's an executive MBA student of mine. He's meeting his good classmate is Doug Holt, who's meeting with Don Kellman and I think you and Ron Hitendra on Friday. And both of those two are at the lead edge in the world, and they've got the money. They can spend the money. And so if Paul, do you know Bradley Andrews from Worley? He's the president and he's based in London. He has 20% of Worley's business worldwide that he runs. And he's the lead edge inside the whole company on sustainability, et cetera, because he did that as a major project in Lake Forest. Do you know him? If you don't, you should.
Yeah.
And he should know you.
I know him, and also NEOM. NEOM, by the way, is one of our lead partners, and Worley is also a partner. But I can only repeat, we have had this kind of situations several times in the past, that like there was a sort of a hype or a sort of acceleration in the market, and then of course everyone is enthusiastic, and you want to. The threat is that you become actionistic. You want to do things fast and so on, and that's to be fast. That's very dangerous. I would warn for that, so to say. So there are maybe two approaches. One is the approach to sort of to do it as I would like to do it, with my experience and my network, and the way we work with our partners. And the other way, it is also something you can think about, is if there are a few very enthusiastic companies in the world that have a lot of money available for this subject as a general, because from time to time you have the situation that companies just want to do something and they have money. So that's another idea, but that is not something I can be of many help. I can, of course, support this, and it can be a reference, but we have, of course, other focus in our life. So this is something, but this all relates again to the objectives. We have to before we jump into the water, we have to find out, like, do we want to jump, or what water, or what's the temperature, and so on. Can we swim, for instance? do we want to reach the land? So before we go into actions, just think it over.
Well, maybe we should put you and Brad and Hitendra and Ron in a Zoom room together. Yeah, he does not lack for vision. The problem he has is the rest of the people in a 60,000 person company can't go as fast as he can. He does not lack for vision.
So
And he's already implementing, but he's open to any other ideas. But eventually a company or a couple companies are going to go actually build things that are going to work. Otherwise, you don't get any scale.
so
Ron, you have 1 minute to wrap this thing up so I can let go of the audience who's really observing this on publicly.
So my suggestion, kind of taking off from what Paul said, is there is both the possibility and I'd say the strong need for what I call the and solution. It's both to look for people with deep pockets and powerful visions about what they want to do, and it's to work in the kind of more informal networking consortium role, and it's to do something like these Innovation Olympics. Well, you can do it with somebody else, but I think we have the best. But this is a very low cost, zero risk way of exploring options. It demands an intensive understanding of the objectives at the beginning, and it enables teams that we work with and you work with to go out and explore what the best way is for pursuing these and moving forward. So they've identified just a few possibilities, but they're just possibilities. So right now, what we want to do is have them pursue things that are real, but do it in a way that is no risk to the sponsoring companies, no risk to the sponsoring institutions. It's just exploratory, but it's exploratory in a very practical way with clear objectives and clear solutions that come out in 8 weeks, not 8 months or 8 years. So there is a priority on speed only to get to a thorough understanding of what we need to do and can do and who's going to do it. So I think if we can do these two in the UK and MENA, and do all three of those kind of probes to find sponsors and partners to make them happen, and use that as a platform to then build a more global network where people can participate in these from other regions and begin to do it in their region as well.
Great. Thank you, Ron. Thank you, everybody, for being on this call. We're going to continue talking. So, but about respect for the planned webinar, this webinar officially comes to an end. Again, as a summary, we talked about the use of global teams on the most difficult issues facing the planet, with energy or whether it's aging, and based on that, creating hubs and centers of excellences where you can create collaboration or consortiums to come together, and those consortiums then can fund increased knowledge, but also insights that then convert into projects and accelerators for each one of them. And that's the big idea. And the big idea is GIMI will partner with those entities to support them on the innovation component, and whatever the next big trends are, whether it's nanotechnology, whether it's connectivate, whether it's mass computing, whether it's quantum mechanics, whether it's the future of beauty, GIMI will partner, help create a consortium around that, and then behind that will be teams brought from all over the world to be able to bring the best intelligence and insights, and also the power, the hands and legs of the student teams to do everything possible. Thank you, Ron. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Rodrigo. Thank you, Piyush. And with this, please hang on for the guys in the room over here. For the rest of the people on LinkedIn, on YouTube, on Facebook, thank you very much. And please tune in next week. Have a great rest of the week. Remember, together we can.
And will.
And will.